There are moments in life that tremble on the edge of eternity, moments that split us open, leaving behind a wound that never quite heals. Looking for Alaska is one such story, not merely of youth, but of yearning, not of life, but of the fragile thread that binds it to death. It begins with a boy named Miles Halter, thin as the air he breathes, who carries inside him an ache for meaning. He calls it his search for the great perhaps, a phrase borrowed from the dying words of a forgotten poet, and yet for him, it becomes a compass pointing into the unknown. He leaves behind his home, a place so still it feels embalmed, and steps into the dim corridors of Culver Creek boarding school, a place where laughter echoes through night like the cries of restless spirits. Here, in this realm of half-grown souls, the air is thick with rebellion, smoke, and secrets. It is here that Miles meets her, Alaska Young, a girl who seems carved from contradiction. Her beauty is not gentle but wild, her presence not comforting but consuming. She speaks with the velocity of a storm and smiles with the fragility of glass. To Miles, she is not a person but a phenomenon, something vast and terrifying, something that feels like destiny disguised as disaster. Every glance from her is a spark, every silence a mystery. Alaska walks through the world as if haunted, chased by memories she refuses to name. She drinks, she laughs, she flirts with danger, and yet behind the smoke and chaos, there is something broken, some wound she hides like a sacred relic. Miles becomes her witness, watching her light up rooms and destroy herself in the same breath. Together with their circle of friends, the Colonel, Takumi, Lara, they live in defiance of the ordinary. They prank the system, drink under the moon, and pretend that youth is eternal. But even in their laughter there is a chill, the faint whisper that every joy carries its shadow, and every heart hides its own abyss. In the nights between classes and confessions, Miles begins to fall into her orbit. His love for her is not simple desire, it is devotion, worship, obsession. He memorizes her words like scripture, her scent like a spell. He thinks he is discovering her, but in truth he is being undone by her. For Alaska is a mirror of everything he longs for and everything he fears. Beauty, chaos, freedom, and death. And death in this story waits patiently. One night the air thickens with dread. It is winter, the rain falls in threads, whispering of endings. They drink and laugh, the group of them, until the hours blur. Then Alaska receives a phone call. Her face turns pale, her laughter dies, and she mutters, "I have to go." Panic flares in her eyes. Not fear of being caught, but something deeper, older. She drives away into the darkness, like a ghost returning to the grave. No one stops her. No one knows they should. And then the world shatters. Morning comes like an open wound. The school stirs to the sound of whispers. An accident, a crash, a car twisted beyond recognition. Alaska is dead. The words fall like stones in water, sinking into silence. Miles refuses to believe it. He waits for someone to tell him it's a mistake, a cruel joke. But reality does not wait for belief. He sees her absence everywhere, in the emptiness of her desk, in the ghost of her perfume, in the sudden stillness of nights that once burned with her laughter. The world, once filled with noise, becomes a cathedral of mourning. Grief is a labyrinth. Miles and his friends wander through it, searching for answers that do not exist. They replay her last moments, hunting for clues. Was it an accident, or did she mean to die? Was she running from pain or toward peace? Every theory collapses beneath the weight of uncertainty. The not knowing becomes its own kind of torture. Miles dreams of her, her voice calling his name from beyond the veil, her laughter echoing down empty halls. He wakes with her name caught in his throat, as if she were both haunting him and keeping him alive. The seasons move, but time does not heal. It only deepens. Miles begins to unravel, torn between guilt and longing. He remembers her saying that we are all going to die. It's just a question of how we live before that moment. But now those words feel like prophecy. He wonders if love is only another form of grief waiting to bloom. His search for the great, perhaps, turns into a search for Alaska herself, for meaning in the madness, for reason in tragedy. Yet every path ends in the same silence. In the darkness of his despair, understanding begins to glimmer. Faint, fragile, but real. Alaska was never meant to be solved like a riddle. She was meant to be felt like a storm. She was human, chaotic, divine in her imperfection. She lived too much, too fast, and perhaps that was her curse in her beauty. In losing her, Miles learns the cruel lesson that every mortal must face, that we cannot possess those we love. They are not ours to keep. They are only ours to remember. He begins to see that grief is not an enemy, but a companion, one that teaches us the shape of love through absence. The great perhaps he sought was never a distant destination. It was always here, in the act of searching, in the willingness to keep moving through the dark. He forgives Alaska and himself, and even the world that let her go. In her death, he discovers what she could not in life. That meaning is not found in escaping pain, but in enduring it with grace. By the story's end, the boy who arrives searching for eternity leaves with something far humbler and far more sacred: acceptance. He writes to her in silence, not as a lover, but as a pilgrim writing to a lost saint. You left me in the dark, but in the dark I found light. You showed me that the only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. And as he whispers her name one last time, it is not with sorrow, but with reverence. Because in the Gothic heart of looking for Alaska lies this truth, that life is both fleeting and infinite, that every soul we lose remains stitched into the fabric of who we become, that the living and the dead share a single breath, one of memory, one of meaning. And though Alaska's body lies cold, her story burns on, like a candle flickering in the endless night, lighting the way for those still searching for their own great perhaps.